Hi, friends. It is me, Bobby B, coming at you from, where am I right now? Nelson, BC. You're listening to the Tilt and Shift Photography Business podcast, and I just want to thank you for being here. I've been away for, I think it's about 6 weeks by the time I publish this. I took a dream trip in association with a wedding that I was photographing in Arizona. And I had some revelations. So I'm coming back from this trip rejuvenated, inspired, motivated, and looking forward to sharing with you a few revelations that I had. Because that is the point of getting away from our everyday lives, is to have a different perspective, to be inspired by other things, places, people, other nouns, to be inspired by other nouns. And the point of this podcast is to share stories of inspiration and give you action steps to bring that inspiration to life. It's one thing to be inspired, and it's a whole nother thing to actually do something with that inspiration. And I think as creatives, we get that dopamine hit when we get inspired, and then we kind of lose it when we try to figure out how we're going to make it happen. So today, I'm going to share with you some inspiration and then hopefully some action steps. Actually, some action steps that you can work on. Now, the point of my trip was to take my dog, Harlan, the Darlin, on a camping trip with me. We've camped and hiked, and we used to run together. He doesn't love running anymore. To do this for his 13th birthday. He turned 13 in March, and he is healthy guy, and I know that is the luck of the draw, and it may be taken away from us at any point, especially with every month that he is still with us. He's loves hiking, loves being outside, just like me. We bond over running through tall grasses and smelling the fresh air and views and getting lost just wandering for hours on end. So the thought of driving 25 hours from where I live to where I was photographing the wedding became much more exciting and exhilarating, knowing that I could turn it into this kind of monumental trip. So we were going to go hiking in Utah and Arizona and a little bit of Idaho. And everything went wonderfully, except when we got home, I found out that he was actually really sick. And if you've been following me on Instagram, you know how close I am to this creature and how much light and joy and love he brings to my life. And to learn that he was sick, is sick, will be sick, is pretty earth-shattering. So this brings up the first reminder that I want to give to you, just a general life reminder, but also this applies to our businesses. And that is one of boundaries and how they play into your instincts, or your intuition. Before I left for the trip, I'm going through some really challenging personal stuff. And before I left, I offered the person with whom I'm having these challenges with, I offered not to go because the timing was looking challenging. Everything was looking challenging. I thought my absence would just be another challenge. And I've been looking forward to this trip since I booked the wedding last year. So, but this is what I kind of realize about myself, that sometimes when I feel that I am taking away from someone else, I'm the person who will die on the sword, if you will. I will sacrifice myself because I think that I can handle hardship more so than other people that I've been in relationship with. And that's my kind of inner child programming that still dogs me as an adult. So I had offered this person that I would could stay home. If it would be easier, I should just stay home. And as soon as it came out of my mouth, I knew that I was crossing a boundary and my own personal boundaries, because taking a 3-week trip was perceived as selfish. And in many ways it is selfish. And I'm here to tell you, friends, selfish is not a bad thing. If we are not serving ourselves, we cannot serve other people. You cannot pour from an empty glass. But again, if we're people pleasers, if we are compassionate, if we're empathetic, if we're any of these things that are socially acceptable, doing something for yourself can sometimes be translated as being selfish in a bad way. And I was worried that was happening. And I was told that was happening. But as I crossed that boundary, as I offered that, as it came out of my mouth, I recognized something in my body. And I have not always recognized this. And this is something that I'm going to encourage you to do if you are someone who struggles with following your intuition or your instinct or letting others cross your boundaries. Is I noticed that it didn't feel good. Like it felt like I felt disappointment in my body. Like everything kind of sagged a little, for lack of a better description. I felt like my shoulders sort of came down a bit, and this excitement that I had about the trip dropped. And how excitement is manifested in your body, like with lightness and like butterflies and pleasure and happiness. Those things fell away. Now, the old Bobby would have translated that as, of course, because this is logically what I'm doing. I'm saying no to something I want to help someone else. And therefore, disregarding my own boundaries. Now, if you are in relationship with your clients, family members, loved ones, if crossing a boundary makes you feel bad, that's your body telling you that you shouldn't do that. And especially as women, dudes, this probably happens to you too, but women particularly are conditioned to ignore that response. Our boundaries get crossed many times a day, even more so for people who aren't, people who tend to be a little bit more sensitive or empathetic, if they can characterize themselves that way. Boundaries are easily crossed. And we are conditioned to believe that that is okay because you're helping someone else. We ignore what our bodies are telling us. Something as simple as like, oh, I don't feel as good as I did a couple seconds ago. Oh, it's okay. I'll be fine. I'll think of something else. And we are very good at logically explaining why these things are happening. Like I was very logical, but I was like, okay, I'll save this much money. I can do other stuff at home. We can hike around here. I can take a flight to the wedding. But like immediately I had all these answers, which were a response to me feeling deflated and trying to make myself feel better, right? What I'm trying to share with you here, friends, is not paying attention to your boundaries is one thing, but ignoring the bodily sensations that are telling you that your boundaries are being crossed is another indicator for you to learn how to uphold your boundaries. One, you kind of have to know what boundaries are being crossed, and therefore what boundaries you have. Some of us don't really figure those things out until we're like, whoa, I don't like that. And then we've realized like, oh, I need a boundary there. Some of us just naturally have them. This was a very shocking experience for me because I have really excellent boundaries in my business, sensational boundaries in my business. I have terrible boundaries in my intimate relationships. And maybe you do too. But I'm sharing this with you because I think it applies both in business and in personal life, and how we perform personally is going to help how we perform professionally. So as soon as I had said this, I felt the deflation in my body. I felt my body create logical reasons, and then I stopped it all. So what you need to realize that your boundaries are being crossed is first that awareness, and you can look for physical sensations. Also observe your thoughts. If you suddenly have this laundry list of very compelling logical reasons why you should or shouldn't do something, that is social conditioning, so that you return to a state of equilibrium. You know how you were excited before, you feel the deflation, your body's going to create logic so that it kind of balances out that more negative feeling. Side note, there is this perception in our society, you know the phrase, I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop, or you can't be happy all the time, blah, blah, blah. These phrases are not healthy. We do not have to wait for the other shoe to drop if something bad happens. The bad thing could just be that thing. Or we don't have to expect the goodness to end because it's been good. And I'm just as a tangent, direct you to a book called The Big Leap by Guy Hendricks. And he talks about this a lot. The book is all about this, about not believing that you are allowed to be in a state of happiness or joy, or that it has to be somehow balanced with negativity or grief, or not grief, guilt or shame or anger, or any that there's an equilibrium, and there isn't. And that's where the crossing of boundaries really comes in, is that we sort of expect these things to happen. We've been told that you can't be happy all the time. Why? Why can't I be happy all the time? Sure, bad things happen that will make me sad, but I don't have to create bad things to make me sad because I've been feeling happiness. There's a big difference between shitty things just happening in your life and not allowing yourself to have happy, good things because they need to balance out bad stuff. Or good things not staying because it's time for some bad stuff. I've been feeling good for a while. That is utter horseshit. So if this is helping you to figure that out, I hope that tangent was helpful for you. So back to boundaries. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is because of what happened when I got back. So I went on this trip. It was the most glorious 3 weeks probably of my life. I was in nature the entire time. I was with my favorite creature. We were exploring mountaintops and forests. We would get up in the morning, have a yummy breakfast, pick a trail, go for a hike, come back, have a bite to eat. I read poetry. He slept. And then we watched the night fall. It was idyllic. And when I got back, I had to quickly turn around to go to a wedding in Toronto. So I had the wedding in Arizona, and then the next weekend I had to go to Toronto. And in the meantime, I had to come back to Nelson to drop off the dog, Harlan. And while I was in Toronto, he was diagnosed with kidney disease. And I noticed my boundaries come up, or the impact of me having gone. Now, Bobby of a few years ago would have said something along the lines of, well, I shouldn't have gone because this happened. And if you understand where I'm going here, a few years ago, I would have said that because I didn't believe that I was worthy of getting what I wanted. As evidenced by me offering not to go. And then when I realized I was crossing a boundary to make someone else happy, I pulled back and believed that I could go. I should go. It's my right. I'm worthy of this. But when I came back and learned this about him, again, that popped into my head. Well, I shouldn't have gone. And then you have to teach yourself to turn that around to say, no, actually, I'm even happier now that I went because I had that time with him. Right? So boundaries teach you how to look at something from a different perspective. So when our boundaries are crossed, we can tend to look at it from a more self-punishing perspective. But when we maintain our boundaries, that can give us the confidence or the self-efficacy to look at it from a more positive perspective because you maintained your boundaries and look at this goodness that happened. So the reason I'm sharing this with you is manifold. One, because I went through it, I'm imagining someone else may go through something like this, and I hope that this is a helpful story for you. How this applies to business is that, likewise, if you are someone who is challenged by boundaries, you are someone who is likely has a hard time sharing your worth, like the amount of money that you would like to make. You are maybe someone who struggles with putting yourself out there, and I'm using air quotes, putting yourself out there, really showing compelling images that really speak to you and your voice, rather than showing things that you think other people want to see. So with this story, my friends, I want you to think about, okay, what boundaries do I have? What boundaries do I feel are often crossed by others who want something from me or who I want to maintain a good relationship with? But I will tell you this. If your relationship requires you to cross or to cross your boundaries, or someone else to cross your boundaries in order to maintain that relationship, it's not a good relationship. Good relationships, healthy relationships, do not rely on one of you disregarding your boundaries. Okay? And that goes for personal, that goes for business. If you have a client who is demanding time that you didn't commit to, demanding service that you didn't agree to, they're crossing your boundaries. And the reason that they're crossing your boundaries doesn't say, I mean, they could be a jerk, but more likely it's that your boundaries were not clear to that person. Again, we often disregard our boundaries for the health of a relationship. And so it's not necessarily that person's fault. I mean, it certainly could be, especially if you've told them about your boundaries and they continue to cross it. But if you've never voiced your boundaries, or if you're not even aware that is what's kind of eating at you, again, pay attention to that physical sensation in your body. That your body will always tell you when something is wrong. It will always tell you. And if it's not telling you, it's because you've shut it off somewhere at some point in your life. And you can get it back. You absolutely can get it back. I'm a testament to that, and I can speak more about that at another time if you would like, or you can email me or message me on Instagram. But when we do not pay attention to what our body tells us, particularly in relation to boundaries being crossed, then we're missing that signal and an opportunity to learn what we are actually comfortable with, and therefore develop the skills to be able to tell other people about that. But if you're in relationship, or if your clients are treating you in such a way that why do they keep doing this to me? If that question is coming up in your head, like, why does this keep happening? Chances are it's a boundary issue. And those boundaries, it is up to you to tell people what your boundaries are. And that can happen in your marketing. That can happen in your contract is the best place to voice your boundaries, but also in your discovery call when you're with your people. I hope this little story, this meandering story, has been helpful for you. It's something that I thought a lot about on my trip, and so I felt compelled to share it. And I really want to thank, while I was on my trip, it was really cool because I kept getting little messages from people who had just discovered the podcast and saying how much value they were getting out of it and how much they loved it, because this is just a a personal passion of mine. I really love sharing insights both from myself and from others. And it is really heartwarming to get a DM or an email to say that someone is finding value in this. So if you've ever thought, that was a great podcast, please leave a review, or just send me a little email or a little DM, or don't. There's no pressure to doing this, but it is fun to hear when people are listening. So boundaries, friends, boundaries. Look for it in your body. Do not use logic to justify your boundaries being crossed. Okay, those are the two things. 1, notice when your boundaries are being crossed by a physical sensation in your body. 2, notice when the boundary is being crossed. You will feel it in your body. Create a relationship with your body if you don't already have one. A lot of us haven't been taught or encouraged to do that. And I tell you, it's the most valuable relationship that you have in your life. Understanding what your body's telling you. Try to avoid using logic to justify your boundaries being crossed. Whether it's describing something that other person is going through, or an aspect of their personality, or XYZ. The reason that your boundaries are getting crossed is because you haven't been clear about them. So, to wrap up, having boundaries is healthy and necessary for you to have a fulfilling career, personally and professionally. I guess you don't have a career personally. Your career professionally and your life personally. Boundaries are instrumental for your mental and emotional health. To figure out what those boundaries are, it's often a really good way to you will know that your boundaries are being crossed if you develop a relationship with your body. And also pay attention to your thought patterns. That are you trying to create logic around this? Are you trying to justify that this is happening for a certain reason or in a certain way? Blah, blah, blah. If you're trying to find logic to describe, to support or justify why your boundaries are being crossed, that is a red flag, my friends. All right. Thank you for being here. I so appreciate you, and I will return next week. Have a beautiful day.